to talk about a very serious topic, and that is the Child Protective System in Arlington, Virginia. I'm aware that there are problems with Child Protective Services and foster care all over the country, but today I'm focusing specifically on the problems in Arlington, Virginia, because they've come to the public attention a lot, especially with a recent article that was published by Barbara Hollingsworth in the Washington Examiner. And she states, children are being taken from their homes based on tips from anonymous telephone callers alleging abuse or neglect. In February, Georgia State Senator Nancy Schaefer released a blistering assessment of the bureaucracies entrusted to protect children. She said, quote, "I believe Child Protective Services nationwide has been corrupted and that the entire system is broken almost beyond repair. I'm convinced parents and families should be warned of the dangers," unquote. Armed with court orders and protected by confidentiality statutes that function as bureaucratic shield laws, CPS workers need just one anonymous phone call to a hotline to swoop in and remove children, regardless of the facts. Some of these complaints may be legitimate, but most are not. Many can be made by a vindictive ex-spouse, a noisy neighbor, or a disgruntled relative who can complain about how parents discipline their children, such as withholding TV privileges or repressing their children by supervising them too much. Stephen Krasson, a professor of political sciences and legal studies at Franciscan University in Steubenville, Ohio, is writing a book on CPS. He says CPS itself now possesses a grave threat because it is almost impossible to fully insulate one's family from a system that on very little pretense can simply reach into the home and take away one's offspring. It doesn't have much to take to put your children in foster care, but getting them back can be another story. An anonymous call about a 10-ounce weight loss by 3-week-old girl Sabrina Slider triggered a legal avalanche that buried her parents, Nancy Hay and Christopher Slider, in Arlington's bureaucratic and legal system. We want people to know that when our children and families are in danger like those, it's time to shut down this agency, which has torn apart so many loving families, and hopefully work to return all the children who were unlawfully and unjustifiably separated from their parents, and return those children to their parents. We all want there to be a safe system in place to protect children from real abuse, but Child Protective Services is failing in that. And for that reason, I believe they need to be shut down and a new system put in place to protect children and also to keep families together. I'd like to ask at this time if there are any questions.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Jordan Brin.
So we understand that there are some problems with the current system, and sometimes that without justification that children can be taken away. What can parents do to protect themselves in the current system?
I think the most important thing they need to know is even before they start having children, if they're pregnant or thinking about conceiving a child, that's the time to learn about how, unfortunately, their rights can be violated, so that they can, well, let's put it this way, a lot of first-time parents get taken quite by surprise when their accused of abuse or neglect. And so it's important for them to know, even before their child is born, how easy it is for people to make false accusations.
Could I follow up with a second question?
Yes.
So, from your experience, what can be done to reform or improve the current system?
I think the most important thing is we have to take away the monetary incentive for removing children from homes. The monetary incentives to CPS are to place the children for adoption rather than returning them to their biological families. And so that legislation, such as the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act and the Adoption and Safe Families Act, those laws need to be repealed because they provide the wrong financial incentives for the wrong purpose.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
So can you explain again, you said that there's a monetary incentive for CPS to take kids away from their families?
Yes.
And why is that?
Because initially when this law was passed, people thought, well, if children are in foster care, then money is needed to take care of them. And so, but then what happened was we found that all this money was being given to foster parents for things like paying for their daycare when they were at work, or you know, paying to send a child to a private school. These were things that biological families never got any help on. A lot of the families the children were removed from were simply economically disadvantaged, where they maybe weren't able to afford the best strollers for their children, or maybe they were overworked because they were working 2 jobs and had trouble finding a nanny. But the monetary incentives would help the foster parents to hire a nanny, but would not do it for the biological parents.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. I hope we can solve this.